Streisand, and it had Minnie Driver, Hilary Swank, Susan Sarandon, Shirley MacLaine. And Shirley MacLaine started talking about Alice. And it just blew my mind that this woman was a director, producer. She had her own studio. She was making films. And I didn't grow up knowing much about film because I didn't go to film school. I came into the industry a different way. But it was a shock. It was a shock to my system, the wiring of my brain. You grow up learning about all these things. You never think about a first female director. You don't think about women in music. You think about Beethoven, Bach, Mozart. You never hear the female voice that clearly we're discovering through this film and many other discoveries, that the female voice was there. Many female voices have been there throughout history, but they've been marginalized or completely deleted. So like anybody else, when you find out about something interesting, you start telling people. And any person that I approached, they had no idea what I was talking about. They thought I was making it up. They're like, I've never heard of her. What are you talking about, etc. And then I was telling my grandmother about it, I remember, and she was completely blown away. She says, are you sure, nobody's done a film about her? Like, are you sure? Because, you're in Hollywood. And I was like, I don't really think so. I think there's been some documentaries, but nothing like, what I want to do. And so then I just started, looking up, researching, and just doing stuff on my own, and just started poking around. I found Joan Simon, who had done an exhibition of Alice's work at the Whitney. And she kind of was the foray into the world of archival and all the different, the web of Alice Guy-Blaché in the academic world. So that was interesting just to know the players, but what was most interesting to me is like, okay, what else can I find out? I need to find new stuff. Like everything that I'm reading is academic. Like I want to know about her as a person. And it started just by getting obsessed with Ancestry.com before it was even famous, finding documents, finding descendants, and it just snowballed into I couldn't stop. It's a pure addiction.
One of the beginning fascinating things is that she didn't just direct movies, but she came up with the idea of making a narrative film.
One of the people. We never say that she's the only one.
Well, who did it before 1896?
Well, the Lumieres. She always says the Lumieres were before me. I was before Méliès, but I am the first female director in the world who did a narrative. But she never says that she was first.
Okay, but Monsieur Gaumont, his response when she said, I think I can tell a story, was go ahead and try? Or?
He didn't care. He was like, whatever, and then when he saw that it could sell cameras and it could be a revenue stream, because that's what they were doing at first, why not? Because she had the business sense, and her father had a bookstore. Obviously, they needed to survive. She saw her mother go to work in Chile, so she had the business sense of wanting to survive, to stay at this position, and to be able to support her mother. So people find ways to, besides being interested in the art form and what could it become, what can I do to keep this thing moving, because I need to make a living. And that's kind of like an engine behind it, if you will.
But it's perfectly understandable to think, people had invented a motion picture camera and they were making movies of railroads arriving, trains arriving at the railroad station, but not necessarily telling narrative stories. So if she saw a Lumiere film, she said, I can do that too. Or because like the Cabbage Fairy, which I would love to see the whole film. Does the whole film still exist?
It's so short. It's like 50. I think I showed the whole thing. It's like 50 seconds.
That's the whole film.
It's really short. I mean, they're kind of like, YouTube, Instagram, or, TikTok video, we call it today, right?
Right.
I think what's special about Alice is not the fact that she can tell stories. I think what is special is her contribution to the grammar of cinema, to the storytelling as a whole, and understanding characters, understanding how to work the camera. And even though it was a locked camera, how to work the characters in to give it depth and bring these stories to as being a daughter of a bookseller. Um, she had the love for storytelling in books, but also stories of life. She was a very curious individual, and she thought, why not use this medium to take it further? And I think that's what makes her special. It's not just, I mean, it's cool that she did one of the first narratives, but it's so much more interesting how uh, one of the reporters that interviewed me, he said that she took the training wheels off of cinema and pushed the medium forward in so many ways with the, tinted coloring, the close-ups. She experimented in sound, um, doing the life of Christ with 300 extras at the time. I mean, things that are just beyond, you know, uh, crazy scope at that time when cinema was still in its infancy. She was definitely crucial in the development of this medium that we still enjoy and watch today.
I was very impressed by the composition of the scenes that I saw in your film that she had shot, and also by the level of the acting, the quality of the acting, because it was warm and natural, but full of life. Never, never under. And the actors seemed so released to be able to perform in a natural way. It was beautiful to watch in those scenes.
That's why it's called Be Natural.
Yeah, well,
because she had the sign in her studio, but when you look at her films, they're very naturalistic. And I think one of the amazing things for her is that she worked in a photography studio, so she learned. Sorry.
Hello.
Composition here.
What?
She learned composition, which I think is a little lost today because we're in a digital world and you have amazing cinematographers, etc. But I think learning from photography, going to movement, it really does help with composition. So I think that was a great thing that it started out being a photography studio, and then it went into motion with the use of cameras for her. She could, really frame. Her framing could be really cinematic.
Yeah. There is love going on there.
Her name is Nitrate.
Nitrate? Oh no, she isn't going to dissolve, is she?
That's right.
Did I read that they've actually, with your help now, dug up 150 of her films?
We found 12.
You found 12, and there already existed a certain number.
138.
So.
And we also contributed into getting full preservation for a film called Tramp Strategy that was found at the Eye, that along with New York Women in Film and Television and Martin Scorsese's Film Foundation, that was the funding to preserve that. So it exists in the US as well now. And has English intertitles. Before that it was Dutch, and it was found at the Eye in Amsterdam. So I, not knowing the process, decided, let's get this transferred. And 2.5 years later, because that's what it takes, because you're in a queue and it's priority and funding. But we didn't only do that. A lot of the films that existed in the 138 were not transferred from Nitrate and weren't available to a wide audience. So, a lot of people will say, you only show a little bit of our films. And That's not true. I show a lot of her films, but I don't show long excerpts because I wanted to show as much of her body of work in the film because I didn't know when they would be that those films would be seen again. You know,
Right.
like Empress was a film from 1916 with 1917 with Doris Kenyon, and that was sitting in France in the vault, not transferred, at the French Cinematheque for the longest time because the inner titles were incomplete. And I was like, that's ridiculous. So the funders of the film paid to get that transferred. So now anybody that wants to access it, they can. And that was the most important part of the process. It's not just getting Alice known all over the world, different languages, different schools, for her to be taught changing the books, but also being able to see the work.
Changing the books, you mean because she was not mentioned in the books and her films were attributed to other people in the books.
Or she's not mentioned. Or for example, Sergei Eisenstein, that was a discovery that we discovered that he was inspired by the film. And we just emailed with Naum Kleinman, who is the writer of the biographies in Moscow, and he is sending us the new edition where it has a footnote that the film that he saw has been identified and its consequences of feminism. So
The film that Eisenstein saw.
I'm sorry?
The film that Eisenstein saw that inspired her. Yeah.
It's nice to give this woman a face, that she did have people that watched her films, and not just anybody, Sergei Eisenstein, Hitchcock, etc., and start associating her with people that are known with new material. And like if you type in Alice Guy-Blaché every day on Google now, which is super exciting, you will always find either the film is being shown in Brazil or they're talking about her in some other aspect. When I looked her up on Wikipedia and Google, it did not look like that. So it's nice to see the beautiful images and having her legacy live on.
I understand there's a local angle for New Hampshire in the documentary.
There's a what?
A local angle for New Hampshire, since the film festival is in New Hampshire. Do you want to tell us about your New Hampshire story?
Oh yes, the one that I just told you before.
Yeah.
Okay, so Keene College had found in a barn, I don't know how many years ago. This is pre me being involved, but at least we got the film transferred. A film called Parson Sue in a barn with another film that was made by John Ford and maybe Edison, or another film with Lillian Gish. But there was Parson Sue, a Solax film. So that was one thing. And then the other part that's exciting is the films that we found in the documentary were discovered in Cape Cod at a warehouse. And they also have a warehouse in New Hampshire, but there were no Alice films there. But we'll take what we can get. Because I was told I wasn't going to find anything, that I'm wasting my time. It's going to ruin my career. It's going to take forever. And why am I even bothering? And it's going to cost a fortune. So there you go.
And which of those things were true?
Everything was true. Except
it's not going to ruin your career, but it did cost a fortune and take forever.
It did. My career took a different trajectory. You know, I think the film took a little bit longer than I would have hoped. But what wasn't true at all, the most important thing is that they told me I wasn't going to find anything, and boy, were they wrong.
Yeah. That must, yeah. Tell me about the animation in the film, which is extraordinary and really helps to tell the story of the film. I mean, you actually take us into buildings in Paris through animation Can you just tell us about the animation?
Sure. That was one of the first things that, besides deciding it was going to be a detective story, how do you approach something that's from 100 years ago, to a modern audience and make it accessible and entertaining, that you want to eat popcorn when you watch this, and not feel like you're in, a class, which I do have the layer of that because I want to be accurate and I didn't want the historians coming after me. But for me, I'm an Indiana Jones kind of person. I love detective stories. I love Nancy Drew, Sherlock Holmes, but I also like Pink Panther. And
I did laugh out loud 3 or 4 times watching the documentary, I have to say.
oh, that's great. I always wonder about that. But I feel like I went in as a civilian and I walked out, a film graduate in a way, because I learned so much. But for the audience, I wanted it to be exciting. Some people will never go to Paris. They'll never go to Société d'Encouragement when she saw that stuff. So how do you do something in an interesting way that is accurate, it's entertaining, and has a little bit of a wink, and those are the tools of my day job. So of course I took it a little far, like my research and working on the film. I'm a perfectionist, but I wanted people to laugh, because when you laugh, you remember as well, and I wanted people to feel joy when they watch the film so they could tell other people about it, and be mesmerized, even though I didn't have the ability to shoot all this footage and go back in time. And Alice certainly didn't have, all the audio or footage that I needed. So how do you create all those camera moves and fun moments if you don't have it? You have to make it. So I chose the animation, and also to condense material, because it could be very boring. So if you don't have something that you can look at that can get rid of 4 sentences, then we'd have like a 10-hour documentary.
Well, the animation is amazing, and also the mystery story is definitely amazing. And the frustration of when you find that interview, trying to find someone in Los Angeles who can actually preserve that tape. That was an extraordinary story too. I
thought that was the movie. I thought I was going to find the tape, and I was like, okay, I'll cut this up and that'll be it. But it wasn't enough. I needed to research more, but that was real. I mean, I really went to all those places, and I thought,
how many times can you hear it can't be done before you decide someone's going to know how to do this?
Yeah, and I just thought that for me it was so strange. Like, you do what? You bake a tape? I can't believe it. And all I can see in my mind was the tape melting and how do they do this, etc. And so of course I made a funny of it with the oven, because it is ridiculous. And for a person who's not in the industry to see that, it's entertaining, but it's also, again, by doing it in a humorous way, you're going to keep the attention of the viewer, but also show them something that they would probably never know about. And I had a lot of resistance for people that watched the film early in the making, like, why do you have to show that? It's not interesting. Who cares? You have to find the tape. And people do know about Alice. And no, that's not true. Only a very small group of people in academia knew. And I think it's interesting that tapes are getting baked and films are being produced, and so
That I may be the only person who knows how to bake a tape.
but also, looking in boxes and garages, and people like, why does she have to call a Descendants and we have to hear about it? Because it's exciting. That is why, because you don't know what it's going to lead to. Of course, I didn't put all the hang-ups, people hanging up on me. Don't ever call me again. It's not me. But you have to show the journey for future researchers, but also to show that it just didn't just land on my desk, that it took, perseverance, and you want to follow somebody's journey and determination to get through all this stuff. Anyway.
And the animation helps with that story, because it does make it visually exciting as well as a mystery story, which is one of the things I loved about the movie. Did you you were working with some very high-powered people on this film. Did they give you a free hand?
Well, the interviews are the interviews, but Hugh Hefner is in the credits. He donated $500,000 before he died out of his pocket. Yes, did he objectify women? Sure, but he helped a lot of women in the private sector, and not many people knew about that. Publishing books, documentaries, etc. And then
did his daughter have anything? Did Christy have anything to do with that?
No,
she didn't. Wow. Okay.
It's Mr. Hefner direct. It's actually a woman named Terry Thomerson that I would call for 2 years, 4 days a week, until she introduced me to Dick Rosenzweig, who was Hef's partner. And then he asked me, how much would you need? And never thought that was going to happen, but it did. And it was a donation. The movie is completely donation based.
Wow.
John Bailey, who's a famous cinematographer, hung out with me. I have no idea why, because I'm like a nobody, and he's telling me all these amazing big time stories of the industry. And he became president of the Academy later, but a famous cinematographer, and we did the remake and of Alice's film. And many people, Kodak and a lot of different places contributed and helped along the way. And all these people behind the scenes in the archive world, like Dino Everett from USC is one who gave me the number to the mansion, Hugh Hefner's mansion. That's how that came about. But it was a selfless kind of, it was a project that brought many selfless people to the table that really, I guess, found my passion infectious and really wanted to be on the train to get this woman recognized. And she's going to have a special pillar at the Academy Museum that's going to be opening soon. And we have some other surprises that are really incredible that are going to be coming out soon for Alice that I can't share yet, but it's really mind-blowing, exciting.
You mentioned Gish. Did Gish ever work with Alice?
No, but I found an interview with her, so she knew about her, because she said, oh yes, he was the husband of the lady director. So she had no respect for Herbert, but she knew that Alice was a lady director. So that was nice.
Yeah, when you see her acting in those very old films, it is the same style that Alice's actors work in. Gish looks completely modern against a bunch of people doing mime,
Well, Lillian Gish kept stating that D.W. Griffith was the first one to do a close-up. So, we kind of had to change that. So this film kind of takes that away.
Well, you have documentary evidence that it's not true.
Yeah. And actually, she made a film called The Thief that was written by William Moulton Marston, Alice. He sold his first script to Alice, and then because of that, he was able to make his film with D.W. Griffith, which I don't know what the name is right now. But he went on to create a character named Wonder Woman. So it's kind of nice to know that he got his start with Alice Guy-Blache.
Right. I'm looking at my notes. So how did you go about rounding up all those celebs for the interviews?
Some people I worked with, and then others was just a lot of bugging and begging. Yes, like emailing their publicist, emailing their their agents, begging this person to know that person. And then sometimes it would take 2 years just to interview somebody. A lot of bugging and begging.
They don't seem bugged though. They seem very happy to be there in the interviews.
Yes, after they realize, because everybody had to go to a little bit of a Alice school before they went on camera.
Uh,
I would send them the films, and also I had a binder of all the different discoveries, and I told them a lot about her. So then they weren't just parrots, they actually got to see the material, got to see her filmmaking, and can comment in an objective way. And that was another thing too. People were saying, why do you have all these celebrities? Well, if she were here today, a lot of these people would be her contemporaries, or a lot of people would be actors in her movies. So why not?
right. Well, I mean, some people have heard of her before. A lot of people have never heard of her before. And even the people who have heard of her before, having watched your film, know a whole lot more about her than they knew before.
Whether they like it or not.
Right. No, it is indeed a beautiful film and a joy to watch. How was Miss Foster to work with as narrator?
Amazing. I had a way of contacting her. I was supposed to work on one of her films. It didn't pan out, but we never met. And then I contacted her, and she said the best thing that she could do would be to narrate. And I fell off my chair.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she came
You just
over.
made that offer?
Yep. And I didn't know what to do with myself. So she came over and she narrated the trailer for funding. And then I didn't see her for 5 years. And then I sent her, we corresponded because she said, this is going to take a long time. So she knew, because documentaries take a long time. And then I sent her a cut for 2 hours and 45 minutes. And I was hiding under my desk because I was like, oh my God, she is going to say no. She's going to hate it. And no, she was great. She gave notes as a director and a producer, and was there every step of the way, and extremely encouraging and present, and lucky me, lucky Alice.
There's a vibrancy to her narration, which is wonderful.
Well, she speaks perfect French.
Yes,
So
she went to school there, or she went to the French school here in New York, or
the Lycée Français. Yes.
Yeah. Do you mind talking about the timeline a little bit, since you just brought it up, about 5 years between doing the trailer and then getting Jodie back? I mean, I think people will find it interesting how long these things actually take and how much energy and stamina.
Almost 10 years. It feels like 20.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
And we're still not done because it just opened in Brazil. Pending the virus, it's been interesting. It's going to be opening in Ecuador, in Mexico, Germany, Austria, China. We're almost done with the map of getting it out to all the different countries.
But you were in Cannes in 2019, so that's before the pandemic, right?
2018.
Oh, so was that fun?
Yes, but it was, but it wasn't, because they're sneaky in Cannes. Like, they talked to me for 3 years. They wanted the movie. It wasn't ready. But then March something, Thierry Fremont, who's one of the heads of Cannes, said, yes, Be Natural is accepted. And we had to be done by May 8th for it to be ready. We had not negotiated any of the archival. 40 minutes of the film was still not cut together. The graphics were not fully done. And it was nonstop around the clock. I had a double ear infection, lung infection, went there anyway, didn't sleep for like probably the whole time. And then the movie was 2 hours at the time. And I didn't know what was going to happen, because I was like, oh my God, what if they hate it? And all I could see were the mistakes. And I was sweating. I mean, really sweating. And we got a standing ovation. But that wasn't it. Then from there, Telluride. Well, it went to Deauville. We went to Telluride,
New York Film Festival.
BFI. We are all the, and we needed a lot of money to be able to submit it for the Academy Awards, but we didn't get in, which was totally fine. And then got distribution, Critics' Choice Awards nomination, and then it got released, and it just kept going.
So from starting to work on the film to release was 10 years?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. And there was no, and the French were willing to embrace, I mean, you speak French, so that helps a lot, but the French were willing to embrace an American filmmaker making a film about a, no. So
No,
talk about that.
They were very unhappy about that. Actually, they didn't want it made. They went ahead and made a competitive film, like her story, but told differently and horrible, and it crashed and burned, which I suspected because you have to do the work. And we finally got distribution, and it was going to open in France in March. I went to France to do all the press and everything, and then everything got shut down. But then it opened again in June. But it wasn't easy to get that distribution. It was because of a very famous newspaper there called Libération, and another one called Le Monde that have written articles, having seen it in the US, complaining, why is this not in France? So now it is, and it'll be broadcast, and you have to fight. You have to keep up the fight.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Pamela, it's a beautiful film, and you did amazing. I wish I could really appreciate the animation, which just pulls you into the film. I mean, you fall in love with the woman. All you have to do is see her for a second on the screen, and you're immediately attached to her. And the complicated story of her marriage and her daughter and all, which you tell so finely and so subtly, but you get it all. It's but again, who does? Do you do the animation? How does it's all computerized? I'm just blown away by the animation, I have to say.
Well, I creative direct, so sometimes I'll sketch, or I pull references and just say make it look like that. I had pulled the Monopoly board and the Lincoln Memorial to put together the Edison section, or the studios in Fort Lee. Those were ideas that I thought about, like, oh, let's make it like a Monopoly board, so she's Solex. And then later, when Edison is kind of hovering with the shadow, I used the Lincoln Memorial as a reference. But I had a team of amazing people. Like, it's an army of people. Filmmaking is a collaborative process. You might have an idea, but you need people to be able to bring your ideas to life, and also to be supportive throughout the process and help move you forward, which at first I did not have that. So I'm very grateful that I have amazing funders, Geraldine Dreyfus and Regina Scully and Jamie Wolf, and I mentioned Hugh Hefner and Abby Disney, like all these amazing people that, Elaine Thomas, it's a long list, Linda Weinham, that have, written personal checks to keep this ship moving in the right direction to the finish line. And that takes a lot of belief, because at a certain point I thought, these people are going to kill me. They're never going to pay for this stuff. And, and I put my own money into it too. So.
Oh. Well, this has been a big pleasure for me. And I encourage everyone to see this film. It's truly astonishing.
Thank
you will fall in love with this woman, Pamela, and you will fall in love with Alice Guy-Blaché as well, and her story.
Well, if they want to see it again, they could see it on Amazon Prime, or Google Plus, or YouTube, or Vudu. And if if they know anybody in different countries where it might be playing, benaturalthemovie.com. And if they want to contact us, info@benaturalthemovie.com. And there you have it.
Okay. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
participating in the talk. It's great to meet you.
Thank you.